your 3D printer might actually be a house fire waiting to happen. And no, that's nowhere near as clickbaity as I want it to be. All this and more, PrintFix Friday, episode 123. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And hey, if you're new here and you're having trouble with your 3D prints, you can reach out to us directly, YouTube at 3dmusketeers.com, or slide into those DMs on all the social media platforms. Twitter's my preferred, but hey, whatever works for you. Link to those in the description down below. And yes, I am serious when I say that 3D printers can be a fire hazard, especially if they have this one particular problem that, unless you really know how to look for it, is harder to find than you may think. So let's get those fire extinguishers at the ready, because it's getting hot in here. But you should probably leave your clothes on. Somebody call the Ohio players, because we got a bit of a fire, and I feel like I've dated myself because pretty much like 10% of our audience is going to get that joke. So, hi, people that have good taste in music. Please, please, please make sure you have a smoke alarm and fire extinguisher near your 3D printer. More details and comments. We've got some burned connectors here. That's a spicy meatball. Look at that. That's a spicy meatball. That's bad news bears. Thing is, though, this is a well-documented issue. So, Grant, what the actual heck is going on here other than the printer recreating the Chernobyl elephant foot? We have tinned wires. Tinned wires and these style of clamp connectors do not work. If you get a cheap 3D printer that is any more than a couple of years old, you will want to check to make sure that your wires aren't tinned that are inside of these connections. And by tinned, I don't literally mean like a Tin Man on it or something like that. I mean that they've been dipped in solder. It is common to see this in electronics because it keeps the wires from fraying. And when you do a physical connection, like a butt connector or something like that, it can be helpful. But in a lot of cases, because it's not done correctly, or the specific connector is not designed for it, tinning the wire actually allows it to wiggle. That wiggle causes excess friction and heat and resistance, which eventually leads to what you see here. The printer has just drawn so much power through those connectors that the connector itself has started to melt. And yes, this can and will create a fire if it is left unattended. It is why we say it over and over and over again to not leave your printers unattended and to make sure that you have a relatively safe machine, because guess what? Guess what? There's a blade fuse right there for 15 amps. It didn't stop this. And while potentially these connectors are fire retardant, I don't know if they are. If they were in my machine, they'd be UL94V0 rated fire retardant. But like, if you're not home, you can't stop this from happening. If you're gonna play the game of I don't feel like taking my printer apart to fix the problem, you can buy a solution to try to, well, stave off the pain. Be something like a Wham Bam Cloud, which I have a couple of, and I am well overdue for testing it. So let me know what you guys want to see. Do we bring back the printer that we caught on fire a couple of years back, or do we just make a fire out in the burn pit and toss one of those in there and see how she gets? The Wham Bam Cloud is, to me, like a last-ditch resort. This is a very simple thing to look at and fix if you are new to this industry. But if you don't have electronic skills, do not buy a used 3D printer, because this kind of thing has only recently started to be adjusted by manufacturers. And quite frankly, I wish that they would recall machines with tinned wires. And I don't know who I would need to talk to make that happen, but I feel like the potential for a house fire like we see here is quite high, especially for those machines with a lot of hours on them. Because realistically, consumers know not to go fiddling with electronics. We know better than that, most of us at least. So for a consumer to have to pull apart a 3D printer to check to make sure the manufacturer did their job seems a little overzealous to me for what should be expected. I would personally like to see manufacturers take a step in the right direction for this and actually make a voluntary recall so that we can get these things fixed. Will it happen? Not gonna have any faith. But hey, hell could freeze over. Who knows? It's why you should never rely on blade fuses, because obviously it didn't matter here. Layer shifting help. Printed 787 at original file size 1/144th on a Neptune 3 Pro. Tried scaling 144% to 1/100th on a Neptune 4 Max and getting a decent amount of layer shifts. Why is this happening, and what can I do to mitigate the shifts in the future? If anything, I had the Neptune 3 Pro print the wings faster. So man, it would have been funny if this was a door plug on a 737. We have some layer shifts here, and these are pretty rough. Let's take a look and see what we got here. And yeah, if you're gonna be running into issues like this, I can totally understand why a slower printer would do the job better. For what the heck happened? Oh, is that where the engine goes in? I don't know. Well, we can see that we have some pretty bad warping. And on a print like this, when you're trying to print tall, vertical, the chances of your part wiggling is actually pretty high. For something like this, you're going to want to really work on your orientation. Because it's a lot of forward and backward movement, I would align the wing so that the printer is moving less left and right and more front to back. It'll have a higher chance of success and not knocking the print over. The reason it hasn't fully knocked over yet is because you have a pretty big brim, even though we have some pretty serious warping going on here and some, layer shifts down below as well. Certainly not great, I'll tell you that much. So outside of a big brim, realigning it, what else can you do? We can certainly look at slowing down our speeds. When you try to print tall objects like this with a fast printer, you can actually introduce more problems than you can solve. So don't assume fast printer equals better printer. It's not always the case, especially with bed slingers. If you were doing this on a Core XY and you were seeing issues like this, we've got a different case to be worrying about. But because we have a moving build plate on this Cartesian 3D printer, yeah, okay. We have some things that we can actually look at, validate, and see, can we fix some easy stuff? And the first easy thing that we can do, change that orientation. Hope it helps. Just like if you want to help us out, you can join our Patreon, YouTube channel members, or PayPal, linked down below for as little as $1 a month. Those proceeds go to supporting the channel and doing what we do here. And at the $10 tier, you get to come hang out with an awesome group of people over on our private Discord where we review videos like this before they go live, assuming there's not NDAs or stuff on them. Anyways, we got an awesome group of people, and we'd love to have you if you think it's worth a couple of smackaroos to come and hang out with us and get one-on-one assistance with your 3D printer if you so need it. Why would I get these vertical lines in my print? Printed at 40 millimeters second and 500 acceleration with an Ender 3 V2. So we have a classic case ghosting. This is when your printer is resonating and that resonance is being translated to your prints. It is something that input shaping serves to fix, where you're effectively doing noise cancellation, but for movements. And what's happening here is, well, we're getting some reverberations throughout the frame of the Ender. Unfortunately, there is not much that you can do. A stock Ender 3v2 is going to be heavily limited by its motion system and the fact that it's an Ender. I'm sorry, the V wheels, the bed springs, and just kind of everything not being tight means that you're going to have resonance without some sort of compensation. You could go as far as to put a new firmware on it, be it Marlin or Clipper, use an ADXL to get your input shaper values. But at that point, you might as well have just bought a better printer in the first place. This is one of those cases of, is it worth upgrading the machine, or is it better to just sell it, even at a loss, take that money plus the money you would have spent on an upgrade, and buy a machine that comes with these features stock? Be it something that's open source or closed source, it really doesn't matter. It comes down to whether or not you want to sit there and tinker to get perfect prints, or you want to get something that has this kind of ability right out of the box. And while, yes, you could play with your acceleration, that wouldn't be bad. you can definitely play with your acceleration and find accelerations that don't cause as much ghosting. It's never just going to disappear, especially on material that has some reflectivity to it or some amount of shininess to it, like this black filament here. You're going to see that. And unfortunately, this is a case, in my opinion, of you gotta work with what you got. An Ender 3v2, at least stock, is not gonna get much better than this. And this is not bad for an Ender, to be clear. Is it perfect? No. Is it acceptable? For its price point, absolutely think that it is. When you look at pretty much any option with input shaping from the factory, as of recording this video, is roughly double, if not more, the price of an Ender 3v2. Hey, it's up to you if you want to take the time to make those upgrades yourself, be it with a Raspberry Pi or some sort of, clipper screen or whatever it may be, or if you just, want it to work and buy something from the factories that already have these features that you're looking for. And that's a good thing to think about when you're looking at buying a printer. If you are very money motivated and you want to spend as little money as possible, understand that at a certain point of playing with prices, you start losing quality of life features that, well, if you spend a couple extra bucks, you can certainly benefit from in the long run, in my opinion. Need help with 0.6 nozzle first layer issue. We can see that they've been printing with 0.4 nozzles for a few months and had a good first layer across their bed after doing a spacer mod on an SV06. They installed the 0.6 nozzle and they cannot for the life of them get consistent first layers. They're using the 0.6 profile in Prusa Slicer for the SV06, which is a good place to start. And the first photo is a 20 by 20 millimeter square printed in the center of the bed. The second photo is an 80 by 80, also printed in the center of the bed. Both are 1 layer tall at 0.2 millimeter. Why is the 80 millimeter square printing well with good squish and the 20 having gaps? These files were sliced back to back. My Z offset with the 0.4 nozzle was negative 2.15, and now I've lowered it all the way to negative 2.28 to get the 80 by 80 millimeter print result. Why is the smaller print posing an issue with the same slicer settings? There are a few reasons why this could be happening. One, your Z offset is pretty high. You're going to want to adjust the probe so you're much closer to the 0 mark. The reason is when you get to the extremes, and that's plus or minus 2 millimeters, the probes don't work as well, at least in our experience. And in fact, it's a recommendation from Prusa on the Mark III's and the Mini. If you get close to that 2 millimeter mark, it's time to stop and actually readjust the probe. And since the Sovol SV06 is basically a Prusa Mark III's, it's a little bit smaller, I would guess that those numbers are roughly similar in that you don't want the probe to be too close or too far from the build plate. What Prusa recommends, and what I would recommend as well, is using the tail of a zip tie to set the distance when you have the nozzle just barely touching the build plate. If you changed your nozzle and you didn't have it perfectly set, and maybe it's not hot tightened all the way or something like that, your settings could change. And depending on the nozzle manufacturer, even from Sovol themselves, the nozzle might not have the same dimensions, causing the bit of variance that you see. As long as your Z offset is good and you can get a good clean print, then I wouldn't worry about it. The small area that we see here with the 20 millimeter cube, to me, it's actually indicative of the distance between the probe points, that the machine is not able to give you a reasonably flat and close enough surface because it's too far between the actual probing points themselves. That's a guess though. I'm not 100% sure. Looking at this, it not only looks like it's too far away, but it looks like it might have been sliced with the wrong profile. And unfortunately, we don't have any comments, so my guess is kind of gonna be the one to stand, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, because I have experienced a similar issue where when we change nozzles, our first layer settings all have to change, and that could be from a flow thing. There could be a multitude of reasons. For me, I just change my Z offset and move on. But I've never dealt with an issue where small prints look like crap, but big prints are okay. And in fact, we do see some variance here. So I'd like to see the probe adjusted so it's closer to the 0 mark. Maybe that helps it, maybe it doesn't, but I don't think it's going to cause an adverse side effect which is obviously not what we're going for in this particular case. Raft keeps lifting on my prints. Even when I use glue stick and print, it's coming out with a lot of layer shifts. I don't know what to do. Don't print rafts. Stop with that. Stop with the rafts. Rafts are antiquated. I know, and I know Frankly Built's like, no, we like rafts. Look, I know you like the rafts, Frank. I know. But rafts are an antiquated thing to do. Now, people like Ben Pendergast or It's Boy in Space, he has gotten some beautiful raft settings where the parts do just peel off. But a raft was originally designed to actually do exactly what we see here. Rafts were a thing back when we had only ABS to print with, and we didn't really have the proliferation of heated build plates. And so ABS would just warp like a son of a gun. So we built this platform that we called a raft to just allow the warp to occur on the sacrificial thing that we were going to peel off the print anyways. And then the good part that we were looking for, there was no warp on it because the raft itself was sacrificial and it took up all of that noise. But we can see a lot of warping. So let's see if we can get some settings here. They leveled their bed. They think the Z offset is okay. Obviously, I want to see a first layer to really determine that. We can see a couple of people, looking at this saying, hey, it's going to be a first layer thing. We can see it's Elegoo PLA+, bed is at 70, nozzle is 210. And this is a Neptune. I don't know if it's a 3 or a 4. If it's an input shaping printer, 210 is way too low. Way too low. You want to be printing probably closer to 230 when you're doing fast printing. But if this is a Neptune 3 or a machine that doesn't have input shaping for some reason, yeah, you can run a little bit colder. I am curious as to what the heck kind of support this is. Because it's like we're using like a zigzag pattern or some sort of like rectilinear or honeycomb pattern for tree supports. Something on the actual print settings seem odd to me. I've never seen supports that look like this. Maybe you guys have, but I haven't. This is weird. But this warping up, the glue is actually not going to help you. With a texture build plate, like we see here, you actually want to be a little bit closer than you think. And that's because you want that plastic to really grip into that build plate. And if it doesn't grip, then we run into issues that we see here where it tends to warp. 70 for PLA Plus is on the high side, but if that's what it's recommended and that's what others have had success with, you can try that. Personally, I run PLA a little bit closer to 60, so you can split the difference to 65 if you really want, but in my opinion, something else is off here. These are not layer shifts either. These are some sort of extrusion issue that we're running into. And a layer shift, you would actually physically see shifting. I don't think I see, am I missing a layer shift here maybe? Is that a layer shift? Because like, I don't see a layer shift anywhere else. Because like the rest of the part looks totally fine. Unless I am just not seeing it for some reason. The rest of the part looks totally fine. Is it just shifting? I don't like, for some reason, I don't like these supports. I don't know what style of support this is. I think you're running Cura. I want you out of Elegoo's Cura, and I want you into a more mainline slicer, like Prusa Slicer or mainline Cura, for that matter. This one, I could use some help here, guys. I don't know, what kind of support that is. It looks like some combination between regular support and tree support, and it's kind of tripping me out. I don't know if I like it. It's a little shady to me. But the warping, to me, is indicative of a draft in the room, your ambient temperatures being way too cold, which it is in the winter season right now, so that is a possibility, and the bed is moving back and forth, and that convection of that airflow from the moving bed is causing the material to cool and warp, but PLA doesn't warp this bad. I might even try a different roll of filament to see if the actual problem follows the roll of filament or continues with a new roll. And that is from a different manufacturer and a different color, just to be safe. Unfortunately, some of these testings can be a little arduous and cost prohibitive if you are running on a tight budget. Other than making sure that your bed is really clean, get rid of the glue. You likely will not need it in a use case like this, and move toward making sure that your first layer is perfect, removing these rafts because honestly, they're likely not needed. I can see now that it's more for actually keeping the support stuck than anything else. And in that case, I I guess I don't have too many issues with it, but this support material is so freaking me the heck out. I don't know what it is, and it's giving me the heebie-jeebies. Let me know what you guys think. That's not indicative of layer shifting to me. This is just a bad print. We got some Z-seam. Are we sure this is PLA? Because like this kind of behavior here, where the layers aren't sticking, is like it's super, super cold. So if you are running input shaping and you're running a fast printer, 210, that's probably gonna be your issue. I don't know. I got a lot of questions. Let me know what you guys think in those comments below, and let me know your thoughts on the few that I was really struggling on. I don't know if I'm moving in the right direction or not. I feel like I am, but I might not be. I'd love to know your opinions on this. It's what I love about PrintFixFriday. It's like crowdsourced solutions with kind of a guy running it that's not afraid to be wrong. It's always fun when you get to be proven wrong. Being wrong is fun. But what isn't wrong are these people right next to me who are supporters at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you for making these videos possible and everything that you do. Wouldn't be here without you guys. 123 weeks deep into this thing. And I love it. PrintFixFriday's not going anywhere. So if you did like it, hey, leave a like and get subscribed if you don't mind. Right below me will be the entire PrintFixFriday series. And next to that will be our Smurf 2023 coverage, sponsored by Printed Solid. That's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. What? I'm busy. You can't just come over here and bite me because I accidentally clapped a little bit too loud and disturbed you. You know how this goes. I record all the time. You will sleep all through meetings, but as soon as I start recording, you've got some super sense. That means that you don't. Okay? Okay? Okay. Okay. I give head boop. You go back to sleep.